religious liberty and free speech are in volatile territory today. It's no longer a talking point. It's no longer a narrative. It's no longer a conservative principle just to have discussed. But these are tangible concerns. When you have parents who are concerned about what their children are being taught, and the parents aren't really given a voice. When you have things like Jack Phillips from about 7 or 8 years ago now, who was simply abiding by his faith and saying, I'm not going to custom design a cake that can illustrate something that goes against my faith. When it's simple things like that and the government comes against them and says no, ruins their business, ruins their livelihood, ruins their lifestyle, that's a problem. And these are tangible stories. A lot of law firms, a lot of stories like that. But with us today is First Liberty, who has been very active in religious liberty, defending religious liberty for many years now, specifically in a lot of headline stories that we've been hearing about lately with the vaccine mandates and some others. So I want to talk first about the Navy SEAL case. This is very timely. It's been making headlines. It's very important for people to understand that these are not cases of a technicality. No, these are cases where general service members refused to get a vaccine that was not necessary for them. They did not feel like it would help their health at all. And there's plenty of evidence out there to say that, regardless of where you stand on the vaccine itself, there's enough questions out there to at least you should be able to say no. You should at least be able to say no, right? So you want to give us an update on where this case is right now?
Yeah, so, we filed a preliminary injunction against the Department of Defense, and that preliminary injunction was granted. And essentially what happened was the judge said that the Department of Defense could not persist in trying to punish these Navy SEALs for seeking this religious accommodation as the case moved forward. But in any case, the Department of Defense still continued to penalize our clients for seeking the religious accommodation. We actually have a client who has a traumatic brain injury and was told that he could not seek medical attention as punishment for seeking the religious accommodation, saying, well, you're vaccinated, so you can't leave base.
You're not vaccinated, so you can't leave base.
Yes, that's right. And so we're right now asking the court to hold the Department of Defense in contempt. And also, at the same time, the Department of Defense has asked the Supreme Court to weigh in on that preliminary injunction. So very active case right now.
So you're asking federal court to hold DOD accountable. DOD is asking the Supreme Court to, this is a lot of drama.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to recap on this Navy SEAL case, several Navy SEALs have said we're not going to get the vaccination.
Right.
All right. Chief of Naval Operations is saying that this is for combat readiness. We want to make sure that our military is ready to deploy. And yet you're willing to kick out your most elite trained warfighters, those who you call up and send over to the other side of the world on a moment's notice.
Right.
That to me doesn't sound like combat readiness.
Yeah, not at all.
Not at all. And if you think about, these men volunteered to, if necessary, lay down their life in defense of the Constitution. And you're going to look them in the face and tell them the Constitution doesn't protect them? What message does that send to the entire U.S. military? And one of the things that came out in this litigation was the Navy's process for evaluating requests for religious accommodation is a 6-phase, 50-step process where the bureaucrat in uniform is not even required to read the request until step 35. Now, all of our clients, each individual case is supposed to be evaluated on its own merits. All of our clients got nearly word-for-word rejection letters, which says the Navy is not analyzing these at all. They're just blanket rejecting all of them. In fact, it came out that the Navy hasn't granted a single religious accommodation request to a vaccine in 7 years. So Judge O'Connor in the Northern District of Texas granted that preliminary injunction, and then the Navy appealed to the Fifth Circuit. They upheld it. Now, as Keisha said, they're asking the Supreme Court to overturn the Fifth Circuit so they can continue to either try to make these guys get the vaccine or punish them for not getting it.
Now, you're saying that the court granted the injunction, so at that point, the DOD was not able to discharge or reprimand the sailors in this case, but they still did.
Yes.
So what happens now when a federal court says to the DOD, you can't do this, but the DOD says we're going to do it anyways, a DOD being subject to the federal court, what happens in that case?
Well,
go ahead.
No.
So we asked the court to hold the DOD in contempt, basically, which is the way a court enforces its previous order if you violated it. And we'll have a hearing on that coming up very soon.
So would it be the Chief of Naval Operations, or who in the Navy, or would it not even be a uniform? Would it be Secretary of Defense, or?
I forget who's named in that, but
Okay.
it will basically be their lawyer in court answering for
Okay.
the Department of Defense.
So I remember that in a similar case, the Chief of Naval Operations, in his letter, basically said, "I get that there's religious liberty, and I think, if I remember correctly, said I understand how this does go against your religious liberty, but it's not compensatory with the supposed harm that it's causing the military." And yet, nowhere in that letter or any of the subsequent letters or endorsed letters did it provide any proof that not getting vaccinated would, in fact, compromise combat readiness.
Well, and I think one of the points is that there are so many other things that the Department of Defense can do rather than take these extreme measures against these Navy SEALs. I mean, they're some of the most healthy people in the country, right? What you have to do to become a Navy SEAL, I mean, is so extremely, onerous on your body. And if you want to say they're not deployable, that's one thing, but saying that they're going to be dishonorably discharged, that they have to pay back all of the money that was used to train them, I mean, that's just outright hostility. That's not reasonable in the least. That's just punishing them for seeking this religious accommodation, and that is absolutely not right.
Yeah. So I am by trade a skeptic, because that's what you do when you're in journalism. And so I remember being like, I see headlines for them saying, they're going to get discharged and all this. And I'm like, well, it's probably not that. It's yet. And yet that's exactly what it was. That is exactly what it was. And I'm like, that's the biggest slap in the face to the military, to the elite members of the military. I mean, a lot of these guys, they've been in for a long time. Been in for a very long time. I mean, you have to be in for a few years to be a SEAL. But I mean, these guys weren't just new SEAls. We're talking like chief level and whatnot. So, I mean, that's some guys who were just approaching 20 years, almost eligible for retirement. Like, what do you do at that point? One more enlistment or one more, commission phase, and they would have been free to retire with a pension, and now nothing.
Yeah, how do you thank your Navy SEALs for defending the country? Not like this.
That's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these guys, our clients, between them have hundreds and hundreds of combat deployments. It's laughable on its face for the Navy to say, well, this harms readiness. If there's anybody who can engage in a firefight while still having a head cold, it's probably a Navy SEAL.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll close with some commentary of my own, just because I'm very opinionated. When you look at the Chief of Naval Operations, or anyone who gets so senior to even be close to that, their chest is full of medals, Valor, Bronze Stars, you name it. And it boggles me that a civilian federal court has to be defending service members. I'm like, what about their commanders? What about the flag officers, admirals in this case? Why didn't they step up? Why didn't they step up and say no? And you can say, well, their career's on the line. They put their lives on the line other places. I mean, where did the courage go to stand up and say, you know what? We're going to say no. And if that costs me my career and boo-hoo, I get to retire with a 2-star pension, wherever they are it's like, come on now, write a book and get $1 million. It'll be fine. But I really hoped that, you guys know Lieutenant General, he's retired, Jerry Boykin, Family Research Council. I was talking to him about it when this first came out earlier last year. And he's like, I hope that I was going to give his accent, but I won't. It's like, I hope that some of these chiefs come out and just say no. It's like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do it. When we signed on, as leaders, especially as flag officers, we're not going to subject our troops to that. Our first step, our first, priority is our troops, is our troops, not our careers. That's a careerist, and no one likes to be called a careerist in the military. But that's not what we're seeing. These are political appointments. It's really sad that they're putting money before the troops, money before rights. Like you said, I mean, just because you have the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, doesn't mean that you don't also have the Constitution, So, anyways, final thoughts from either?
Well, it's definitely a privilege to be a lawyer at First Liberty to defend religious freedom. It's absolutely needed right now, I think, more than ever before, when our president and CEO will tell you that only a few years ago we filed, I think, 40 cases, and last year we filed nearly 300. So it's definitely escalating, and it's something that we definitely need to have, and we're definitely proud to be a part of First Liberty.
Yeah, and I would just tell people there is reason to have hope.
Yeah.
If you just watch the news all day, you'll get depressed pretty quickly. So don't watch the news all day, number one. But even the news that covers our cases rarely get around to telling you that we win. We're winning these cases. And so, yes, we are busier than we've ever been, but we're continuing to win. And so people need to have hope, because when you have hope, there's no reason to fear. Our ministry is to protect everyone out there's own personal ministry, their right to live their faith. Because when they do, they make life better for other people. And that's what we exist to protect.
Well,
That's right.
it's a pleasure to be able to tell you all a story. You know, you were going to say something, sir?
I was going to say, if anyone watching has any issues with their religious freedom, firstliberty.org.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to put the social media tags and whatever we post, we'll be sure to link it back to you. So
Absolutely.
Thank
thanks
you.
so much for your time, guys.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank you.